This is a 1996 Yamaha YZ250 off-road motorcycle. I bought it from a buddy from Yunnan. It was in his friend's hands. On the phone he told me that apart from the body panels and some of the stickers being a bit bad, everything else was in good condition. But after it was delivered, it wasn't as simple as I imagined. The whole bike was already in a semi-scrap state. Getting it to start was simply impossible. This is the carburetor of the bike, the only part on the bike that still looks new. The whole bike only weighs 100 kilograms. It's equipped with a very high-output two-stroke engine. That's exactly why I like it. Right now it won't start at all. Let's take it apart and have a look. Back then I even thought that friend was silly, selling it to me at such a cheap price. I didn't expect that the real clown was me. This dirt bike doesn't have an electric starter. At first I thought it could still be kicked to life, but after I saw this scene, I decided not to even try to start it. Now looking at the engine, a lot of bolts are already missing. And then I discovered another big problem. Two-stroke engines don't have valves. Take off this cover, and you can see the piston. This area is the cylinder sleeve. Let's see if there are any scoring marks, whether it's already damaged. The cylinder wall still looks pretty good. That gave me a bit of hope. So, I kept tearing it down. This part houses a power valve. It makes the bike even more aggressive. If the cylinder is fine, I can fix it at the lowest possible cost. Now I'm feeling a bit less nervous. Let's quickly take the cylinder off and check whether the piston has a problem. My luck is terrible to the extreme. There is still an issue. The connecting rod itself still looks very good. There is almost no noticeable play, but there are just way too many missing bolts on this engine. There are barely any bolts left fastened. If there are no bolts in place, that proves some rocket mechanic has been in here before and they didn't fix it properly. Let's keep stripping it further. This is the magneto, used for generating electricity. This bike relies on it to start. While disassembling to this point I found a problem. There's not a drop of oil inside this engine. It's like it's been washed out. These are the clutch plates. And the clutch basket. They look almost like new. Now, we need to completely strip everything down to see exactly what the problem is inside that's keeping it from starting. With just a little disassembly I've already found so many issues. I really don't want to be riding this bike. Have the engine fail and leave me stranded in the mountains. Just imagining that scene is terrifying. So I'd better restore it properly. This is the gear shift mechanism. At first glance it looks a bit complicated, but as long as I pay attention and remember how I took it apart, putting it back together shouldn't be a problem. I found that this shifting mechanism is actually quite good. There isn't much wear. It can still be used. The bolts are broken where they should be broken, scratched where they should be scratched. There are many cracks in it. As for the piston, there are a lot of scoring marks. You can clearly see all the scratches. But the cylinder wall still looks pretty much perfect. The cylinder doesn't need to be replaced. I only need to put in an original piston and a new set of piston rings, and the problem will be solved. Next, I'll thoroughly clean the whole engine and get it ready for assembly while I wait for parts. Let's look forward together to this bike's resurrection. Before I knew it, it was already midnight. It was very late. Enough. Lights off. Time to sleep. This is how a bad deal happens. At first it just wouldn't start. Once I opened up the engine, everything that could be broken was broken. Because this bike was made in 1996, there are basically no spare parts for it on the market. Finding the parts is like looking for a needle in a haystack. I sent out a SOS message to the motorcycle masters to find such a beautiful orange kit. The old piston and cylinder were scored beyond recognition. I believe this beautiful orange cylinder set has almost no wear. Once it's installed, the engine will regain its original power. Now let's start assembling the engine. Actually, assembling an engine is quite simple. You just reverse the way you took it apart. As long as I'm careful, there shouldn't be any problems. This is how the crankshaft and connecting rod work. Once assembled, you can't see them. Before assembling this two-stroke engine, I found the service manual for this bike. I carefully read the torque specs for every bolt, tighten them to the proper torque according to the manual. The components inside the engine are extremely precise. Every tiny part has its own function. You must calm down and assemble them one by one. After assembling the crankshaft and connecting rod, I started putting together the gearbox cluster. according to different road conditions and riding speeds. After wiping the edge of the crankcase clean, I took some black sealant from the tool cabinet and sealed it all around. Every step of assembly is done very carefully, for fear of making a mistake. Looks like I won't be able to sleep tonight until I finish assembling it, but I also can't afford any errors. This is an electronic torque wrench. Its job is to tighten the bolts to the specified torque. Next, I reassemble the perimeter of the crankcase. Some bolts need thread lock applied to prevent them from loosening and falling out. Now, I'm installing the clutch basket. The most important thing here is the order of the plates. One friction plate, one steel plate, alternating. This rod controls the clutch, opening or closing it. This is the clutch cover. The bolts are tightened diagonally to the proper torque. Because the bike is so old, I couldn't buy new gaskets, so I had to hand make the side cover gasket myself. But the result is actually quite good. After all, parts are dead, people are alive. There's always a way to solve a problem. At this point, about 70% has been completed. Without noticing, it's gotten very late, but my mind is not disturbed by the outside world. Once the side cover goes on, the whole clutch system will be assembled. Next, we install the top of the engine, cylinder and piston. I coat the piston with engine oil for lubrication, and then mount it on the connecting rod. Check that the piston pin is fully seated. Then we start mounting the cylinder. Compress the piston rings into the cylinder and slide it down. Two-stroke engines don't have valves, nor a separate valve train, so it's straightforward. Then I torque the bolts to spec. This is the power valve actuator. It works like adding a turbocharger to a naturally aspirated engine, letting this engine unleash amazing power and become quite scary. That's the reason I like this engine so much. We're now about 90% assembled. Next, install the stator coil and then the flywheel. Adjust the ignition timing to build the ignition system. Now this engine is fully assembled. Next, I'll mount it into the frame and test whether it will start. It's already past 1 in the morning. The engine is on the frame, but it hasn't started yet. I still feel uneasy. Next, I'll just roughly mount it on the frame and start kicking. At this moment, my heart is very nervous. I've waited 2 months for this moment. There's no electric start on this bike, only a Kickstarter. Just now I gave the engine a quick compression test, and it feels very strong. I think once the carburetor is on, there's a big chance it will start with one kick. So let's quickly install the carburetor and test it. Now I'm feeling a bit more confident because the compression is high and strong. This is the carburetor, the device that supplies fuel to the engine. Its main principle is using intake vacuum to draw the fuel. Then I'll mix up a little cocktail that this bike loves to drink, a mixture of gasoline and engine oil. On this bike, the oil has to be mixed into the gasoline and burned together. The oil's job is to lubricate the cylinder and piston and prevent the cylinder wall from being scored. Otherwise, old man Wang next door will scold me again for keeping him awake. Gear oil has to be added too, to lubricate the gears inside. Without noticing, it's already past 3 in the morning. This out-of-town dirt bike has now been fully rebuilt. Let's witness together the miracle of this old machine. It's already late at night now, but I still can't suppress this sense of pride. We've just witnessed the rebirth of this engine. It really makes me happy. The moment the engine fired up, it felt like the bike was calling me, asking me to ride it into the big mountains. But in its current appearance, I almost don't dare look at it. Next, I need to think about how to make it look young again. But it has already cost me a lot of money. I can only grit my teeth and buy 2 brand new off-road tires for it. Actually, this is a 1996 Yamaha YZ250 two-stroke dirt bike. Right now its engine has been fully rebuilt by me, and it starts with just 1 kick. But the appearance and overall condition are still unknowns. I have to strip it down and inspect it again before I can set off. I don't like taking such big risks with this bike. In its current condition, there's a chance of no return. Let me tell you a secret. Everything in this garage listens to my commands. Once I put on my work clothes, they start working. The structure of this dirt bike is very simple: frame and suspension. But right now, apart from the engine I've rebuilt, I don't trust any of the other components. Now all my energy will be focused on this bike. As I always say, as long as you do things meticulously. Remember how it looks right now. Later I will sandblast, polish, and repaint it. Next we'll start stripping the bike. The bodywork of this bike is mainly blue. According to my personal taste, I'll change it to another color to better match my rough, wild style. From the tool cart, I grab a few handy tools. And start removing the front wheel assembly. Now this tire can't be taken off at all. The main reason is that the wheel bearings, they're totally rusted solid. Again, you never really know until you open it up. Right now I can only and then take the whole front end apart. I ran into problems after just a few steps. Wish me good luck from here on. I don't know how the previous owner used this bike. I suspect the wheel bearings were never serviced. The front forks look okay from the outside because they were wrapped with guiders. The fork seals aren't leaking either. I'll take them apart for service and change the fork oil. That should be enough to keep the bike as light as possible. Apart from the frame being steel, everything else is made of aluminum alloy. I checked the service manual for this bike. The factory weight is only 100 kilograms. You could really say it's very light. Now the whole bike has been stripped down. Next comes the cleaning. I take out a mystery solution and spray it over every part of the frame to remove all the oil and grime that's been there since 1996. When washing each component, it feels like I'm cleaning archaeological relics one by one. Then I rinse them all with a pressure washer until their original colors start to show again. Next I strip the paint off the frame because the frame is full of twists and turns. Using a chemical stripper is the most convenient. This process is very stress-relieving and fun. While stripping the paint from the frame, I discovered that its original color was blue. That proves some mechanic had already done a full refinish on it before. Next it's time to tidy up the engine. This is the sandblaster in my garage. It can efficiently blast off all the old paint and grime from the engine and give it a matte surface, so I can apply whatever new paint finish I like. Now, the old paint on the engine has been fully removed. I looked it over carefully and gave a big thumbs up to the beauty of this engine. After stripping the frame, I sprayed on a coat of epoxy primer to prevent rust. For the secrecy of this mission, I decided to design a paint scheme that's easy to hide in the mountains. Luckily, all the lightweight parts for this bike have now arrived. Even the bolts have been lightened. The throttle cable, clutch cable, and their outer sheets have all been custom made new. This is the bike's original carburetor. Because its bore was too small, it often wouldn't start. So I fitted a tuned 38mm dual spray carburetor to this bike. It gives me full confidence for this mission. Tomorrow we'll mount everything together and witness the resurrection of this war machine. Then I'll take you with me to go on an adventure in the mountains. Once I started, things really got out of hand. In the end I did the math. I spent over 10,000 yuan just on parts for this bike. Luckily, besides loving motorcycles, so I can afford this expense. Everything is ready this year. The only thing left is assembly. First, a bottle of wine to calm my excitement. These are the bolts for the bike. The old ones were either stripped or missing, so I replaced them all with new ones. It looks great. Now I mount this high output 2-stroke engine onto the frame. Using the electronic torque wrench, I tighten the rear brake mount to spec. Next I install the rear shock absorber. The shock has also been serviced with new seals and a fresh paint finish. Then I put the front forks back on. For an off-road bike, these are the core components. You can't be careless with any of them. These forks are adjustable for stiffness. Since we're going into the mountains, I'll soften them a bit. Now I mount the wheels. The bearings are packed with grease, and both wheels were brand new, big tread off-road tires. They look especially sharp. Then I assemble the rear rack. The more I assemble, the more excited I get, because with each part, the bike looks better and better. Time to install the handlebar. The bar has to be centered properly, and then the bolts are tightened. This is the front brake master cylinder. To prevent damage when the bike falls, I fitted handguards on it. Assembly is going smoothly so far. Hopefully there won't be any mistakes. The wiring on this off-road bike is extremely simple. There's nothing complicated about it. Now I start adjusting the clutch and brakes. The brake caliper has also been restored and refinished. Next I tighten everything to the right torque. This engine is water-cooled. The old hoses were already aged, so I replaced them with new ones. This is the shape of the exhaust pipe. It's quite unique. It's designed so that the unburned exhaust gases can be reflected back into the cylinder to burn again. Now that it's mounted, the exterior of the bike is basically complete. Most of the major components are already installed. It looks incredibly cool right now. At present, the bike is about 90% assembled. And this look is exactly what I wanted to see the most. Next we'll install all the body panels and stickers. Then we'll go for a test ride. I'm going to use my speed up skill to finish the rest. First, connect the fuel line between the carburetor and the tank, and add a fuel filter in between. That way I can clearly see if fuel is flowing. Next I mount the fuel tank shrouds and the rear body panels. Now, I'm already itching to go conquer the big mountains. The seat also goes on. I also fitted a tug strap to it. This thing is very handy for turning around or lifting the bike in tight spots. Now I pour in coolant so that the engine can always stay at the right temperature. This little gadget plays a big role. Then I mix up another drink this bike loves. A thorough blend of gasoline and 2-stroke oil. Adding oil lets the piston and cylinder wall be properly lubricated. Open the fuel tap so the gasoline passes through the filter and into the carburetor. Then I pour in the gearbox oil. This oil lubricates the gears inside. Now the bike is completely finished. My Yamaha YZ250 has been reborn. Its current appearance is a world apart from before. Now it looks just like it did when it was new. Even Jesus wouldn't believe that I restored this old junker to this condition. Now let's give it its very first start up.